There are a bunch of awesome theme parks in California, some of which focus more on theming and some of which focus more on thrills, but no matter the park, they could all use a roller coaster. In this video, we're going to talk about what I believe to be the best new addition that each park in California could have, but a couple of major notes before starting. Number one, I'm not including small parks and parks that are likely not to get a coaster anytime soon. Therefore, I will be excluding Adventure City, Pacific Park, Belmont Park, Gilroy Gardens, and Castle Park. And then I'm also not going to be including California's Great America and Santa Clara because this park is going to close in the next decade and I'd be absolutely shocked if they got another roller coaster. There were a few things I kept in mind while making my list. Number one, I tried to fill gaps in these parks' lineups. Number two, I tried to take the audience of the park into account. Is it a thrill park, is it a children's park, or is it a family park? Number 3 and 4 are only to a certain extent. Number 3 is that I took land into account, and number 4 is that I took budget into account. I kept these things in mind, but didn't strictly rely on those things. Okay, to Disney's California Adventure we go. The Disney parks were actually the toughest one for me to pin down. These are well-themed parks that scarcely get new coasters. California Adventure opened with 2 in 2001, and while they both have been modified since the park opened, they have the same 2 coasters still. Incredicoaster is the better of the 2. This has a long layout, in fact it's one of the longest coasters in the world, and a vertical loop that pulls some intensity. This is arguably the most intense coaster at the Disneyland Resort, and I think it's a really enjoyable ride. The park's other coaster is the Wild Mouse Goofy Sky School. It's a weird fit for a Disney park, but enjoyable enough for what it is. Those 2 coasters don't check a lot of boxes. So what are the options for California Adventure? I think a good one would be an indoor spinning coaster. Perhaps I was inspired by Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. If there's space in Avengers Campus for this, you could even do something very similar to Cosmic Rewind, though I don't think they have quite the amount of space that ride takes up. The Disneyland Resort and California Adventure doesn't have a spinning coaster, so that's the main reason why I picked it. Now let's move on to the sister park in the original Disney park, Disneyland. Disneyland has an incredible ride lineup and is overall an incredible park, but here is how the coasters shake out. You have Big Thunder Mountain Railroad as one of the most pure fun coasters out there. You have Space Mountain as a fun indoor coaster. Matterhorn is the old classic with 2 separate tracks, and then you have Chippendale's Gadget Coaster chipping in. The latter is obviously worse than the other 3, but I tell you, their family coasters are very well done. The only problem is that they're all family coasters. Do I see Disneyland getting a thrill coaster anytime soon? Honestly, not really, but here are a couple of options. A Vekoma STC would work really well, I think, but again, I can't see this happening at all. The only things comparable in the region are Batman at Magic Mountain and Silver Bullet at Knott's, but those are built B&M inverts and they're slightly different than a Vekoma STC. Another option is a B&M Wing Coaster. This is easier to theme than an STC probably, and you could theme either of these to the 9s, but a B&M Wing once again is too scary, especially with that wing seating. Definitely never going to build this, but I wish they would. To the naked eye, it might seem somewhat similar to X2 at Magic Mountain, but I think they're different enough, especially because this would be well themed, that they could stand apart. But since neither of those are likely, what about a motorbike launch coaster? I do have Tron in mind, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like Tron. That being said, there are large portions of Tomorrowland that need to be refurbished and quite frankly removed, so slap down Tron there and you get yourself a whole new look. For me, I had an easier time choosing my pick for Knott's Berry Farm, located in Buena Park, California. This is currently my favorite theme park. And maybe this is cheating because this idea was thrown out a couple years ago, but a B&M Hyper really would be good here. So why would a B&M Hyper work at Knott's? Well, when you look at the location, there isn't a B&M Hyper for a long way. And while Goliath at Magic Mountain does have some similarities, these rides are so different that they could easily stand apart from one another. Then when you look at Knott's as a park, they could use a floater airtime machine, and they could also use another capacity monster, which B&M Hypers absolutely are, reliable capacity people eaters. This fits in really nicely with the park as a whole because they really have most major genres checked. Ghost Rider's already a standout wooden coaster. They have a couple multi-inverting coasters like Hang Time and Silver Bullet. It's not just these though. Accelerator is also a terrific launch coaster, and their family coasters are set with a spinner, a motorbike launch coaster, a traditional mine train style coaster, a Wild Mouse that isn't very good, and a kiddie coaster. To me, a B&M Hyper just makes so much sense here, and I'm not sure if that plan is still being talked about behind closed doors or not, but hopefully it can happen. On to Legoland California, a less talked about park among enthusiasts, but one of the best children's parks out there. The roller coaster collection is small. Major coasters are really only the Technicoaster Wild Mouse and the Dragon Family Coaster, though they are getting an indoor launch coaster for 2025. This park will never get anything too thrilling, but I think an addition that could be really nice is a Gravity Group Family Wooden Coaster. This would work for a couple different reasons. Number one, there's nothing really like it in the state of California. Number two, it's a family style coaster even if it has some more extreme airtime moments. These are usually less than 50 feet tall, and it would be very marketable to the Legoland audience. Plus, it would bring in some coaster enthusiasts and thrill seekers that may not have been visiting the park before. I think this would be a brilliant addition to this Merlin theme park. Let's move now to our first Northern California theme park and the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. The problem with Santa Cruz is the space, and I have no idea where they would put any sort of new coaster. I think they want to invest into new rides. They got the new Undertow coaster, the Mauer Spinner, just about a decade ago, but where it would go, I have no idea. Speaking of which, Undertow is a fun, smooth, spinning family coaster, and it goes along with the more thrilling and more classic feeling Giant Dipper wooden roller coaster. I think these two coasters complement each other very well, but it's only two major coasters along with the Sea Serpent Kids coaster. So what could this park get? I think a compact launched inverting coaster could be really nice. Something like a Gerstlauer Eurofighter came to mind. We've seen occasionally that these coasters, or the Infinity Coaster model, can indeed be launched, and pretty powerfully too. And we've also seen with the vast majority of the Gerstlauer Eurofighters how compact that company can make them. So if you throw a punchy launch at the beginning, a couple of inversions, maybe a helix or two, and you make this into a tight space, it could really work well here at this park. Amok Ride's Big Dipper also came to mind, but as of yet, none of them have been launched, though I imagine since it's mock, they could launch it if they wanted to. On to SeaWorld San Diego, a park whose coaster lineup has vastly improved in the last decade or so. Of their 5 coasters, 3 of them are launched. A lot of that probably has to do with the 30-foot height limit throughout the majority of the park. They can build above 30 feet, but only a certain amount, as you see with Electric Eel and Journey to Atlantis and the roller coaster department taking advantage of that. They also got a pretty substantial thrill ride a couple of years ago with Emperor, the B&M dive coaster. So this is a park that's family oriented, but likes to build thrill coasters on the smaller side, so I think a Chance Hyper GTX would be perfect. This coaster is pretty small scale relatively speaking, but it packs in a lot of airtime hills, a lot of those being ejector. SeaWorld has a few moments of airtime, but they don't have an airtime centric coaster, and this would definitely be that. Next up is one of the easier choices I had to make in this entire video, and that was for Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, and I chose a modern wooden coaster, either from GCI or the Gravity Group. I'm not sure how much it matters which coaster you choose. The only thing to keep in mind that for the time being, Gold Striker is a GCI located at California's Great America down the road. But again, since that park is going to be closing down, it may not matter. Each manufacturer provides very solid twister wooden roller coasters, and I think you could even go a little bit deeper into this plan. I think you could remove Con, the terrible Vekoma inverted coaster, and Boomerang, the terrible Vekoma looping coaster, and put the wooden coaster down on those plots of land since they butt up to each other. Practically, I'm not sure how well this would work, but conceptually, it's great. Now, why is a wooden coaster a good fit for this park? Well, number one, they got rid of their wooden coaster a couple of years ago when they RMC'd it into Joker, which is a good change. Joker is no question the best ride in this park, but it'd still be great to get a wooden coaster back. Otherwise, they check most major boxes. Medusa is a big multi-looper coaster from B&M. They feature a couple of different launch coasters. They have a couple different spinning/flipping coasters. And the families are a piece too. The one main gap really is a wooden coaster, with keeping in mind the fact that they have a 150-foot height limit in Vallejo, so they're not going to get a Hyper or a Giga or anything like that. Onto a park with absolutely no gaps, Six Flags Magic Mountain. When you have 20 coasters, I guess that's what happens. We don't even need to run through any categories, they have it all. Most major types of thrill coasters you could think of, a wide array of family coasters, and many other rides too. There's pretty much only one coaster that would really stand out at this park, and that is, of course, a B&M Giga. Will this happen? I really doubt it. But should it? Yes. Goliath, their hypercoaster, does some things well, but ultimately a Giga would provide a lot more floater airtime from that style of ride. I think it's a no-brainer that this is the best choice for Magic Mountain, and to be honest, when you have that many roller coasters, it would be really tough to add anything that really stands out, but a B&M Giga towering 300 feet in the air would absolutely accomplish that. And last but not least, we have Universal Studios Hollywood, a park that only has 2 roller coasters, for now. Flight of the Hippogriff is the family coaster, and Revenge of the Mummy is the indoor, well-themed launch coaster. Their coaster lineup is going to get a whole heck of a lot better though in 2025 when the Fast and Furious coaster opens. This should be the park's best coaster, mixing some spinning elements with a terrain, airtime, and inversion based layout with 5 launches. It really looks like they're sparing no expense for this, something Disney could learn from. So with these 3 coasters, what would be a good 4th coaster addition? These 3 coasters actually fill a good amount of gaps. You have an indoor coaster, you have a spinning coaster, you have a standout coaster, you have launch coasters, you have inversions, all that. But I'm going to go with a Vekoma STC and bring that back into the fold. I say back into the fold because we talked about this a bit earlier in the Disneyland entry, but I think this is far more likely to go to Universal than Disney if it was going to go to one of those 2 resorts. Universal is totally okay with building major thrill coasters, which Disney has a limit in doing so. I think this would be a great addition to the park. It would be the 2nd coaster with inversions, but it's very different from Fast and Furious. You also, of course, have that inverted coaster element, which definitely provides a unique twist. But those are just my thoughts in discussing what coasters the major parks in California need the most. Let me know down in the comments what you think. What was your favorite pick that I made? What was your least favorite pick and what would you change? Let me know down in the comments, and please give this video a like if you haven't and consider subscribing to this channel. I'm excited how far this channel has already come and looking forward to seeing where it can go. So thank you all once again for stopping by, and we'll see you in the next video.